For over 40 years, a small, wordless story has been a load-bearing cultural pillar of British Christmases up and down the land. A film whose haunting beauty and power has enchanted us, made us smile, but more than anything else, it has made us cry. Based on Raymond Briggs' 1978 picture book and produced for Channel 4 to be first broadcast on Boxing Day 1982, almost instantly, The Snowman became an iconic part of our Christmas zeitgeist. As Stuart Heritage wrote, Britons clutched it to their hearts, where it has stayed ever since. Now, my memories of this film go back over 30 years to when I was a wee toddler and I saw David Bowie introduce this magical film into my life, where it has also stayed ever since.
One winter I made a really big snowman.
Beautiful, melancholic, tragic. Great art is often born out of darkness, and in the case of The Snowman, this is so true that it hurts. In the early 70s, Raymond lost both of his parents, and 2 years later, in 1973, his wife of 10 years passed away from leukemia. This led him to contemplate suicide soon after. He noted that it wasn't that he was stricken with an unbearable grief, although I'm sure he was, but rather it was that he no longer saw any point of carrying on. Any good thing that might later happen to him, any success he might end up achieving, the first thing he'd want to do would be to run home and tell his wife, or share it with his parents, but he was suddenly alone. Discovering this gives us a glimpse into just how sad and how bleak The Snowman truly is. Now, I should note that an annotated copy of The Snowman was discovered in Briggs' home that had a note from 2014 saying that the ending of the story was not intended to be an allegory of death. But he also notes the extraordinary loss that he suffered earlier in that decade. So while The Snowman may not be an explicit allegory for death, it's a wordless creative expression from somebody that had suffered beyond words. Despite this loss, he continued to work. Another of his notable books was actually published in 1973, Father Christmas. And subsequently, this was turned into an animated film and is also extremely nostalgic for me. However, it was several years after Father Christmas was published that he created his masterpiece. The Snowman was in many ways the ultimate culmination and expression of Raymond Briggs' life story. He had aspired to become a cartoonist, and having studied at several institutions and completed his national service, he went to study painting at Slade School of Fine Art. There, narrative drawing was dismissed, giving him the impression from the school that being a cartoonist was just about the lowest form of life for an artist, even lower than commercial work. And although he ended up leaving with some well-developed tendencies and skills, he was also left with a dislike of painting and what he thought was a poor sense of color. But he also left with what one might say was style. And a distinctive style is what Raymond Briggs had. He deployed this successfully and was making a good go of it, but after becoming disillusioned with the quality of narrative he was illustrating, he decided to start crafting his own narrative and illustrating his own stories. This did lead to multiple successes, including the aforementioned Father Christmas and Fungus the Bogeyman, but it wasn't until 1978 that this masterpiece would be realized, and something that he would begrudgingly be defined by for time immemorial. The Snowman is a wordless picture book, and a perfect expression of his distinctive style of illustration. The fact it is a wordless picture book gives even more space for Raymond's flair for illustrated narrative to thrive. But as wonderful as this book was and is, its artistic and narrative power was to be elevated to the heavens over the next several years as it was made into the 25-minute animated masterpiece that has moved everyone that has experienced it. From the instant the film begins, we are struck by both its sides. The breathtaking artistic vision and animation with, of course, the music. One of the most extraordinary aspects of the film is how well Raymond's distinctive style was captured in the animation. The amount of work and time that this would have taken is almost unfathomable. Directed by the great and pioneering Dianne Jackson, the commitment to excellence is apparent from this initial moment when the film begins. Raymond even expressed delight in how much care was put into achieving this look, even if he was prone to point out some instances where it didn't quite work. And ultimately, without words, we are swept away on a magical, nostalgic, and melancholic tale that we will never forget. From the initial excitement that James has at the sight of snow, something our North American friends might be somewhat confused by, but for British fam, we can all relate to this. And inevitably, as the excitement sets in, he goes out to build a snowman. This wonderful, simple face is as iconic of an image in British culture as any other. And before long, by some mysterious magic, the snowman comes to life. James proceeds to bring the snowman into his home, as he is eager to share everything with him, from meeting the cat, to flicking on the light switch, suddenly these benign, unremarkable aspects of life are wonderful and exciting when James has someone to share them with. And after having spent time relaxing in the freezer and riding about on a motorbike, this story sweeps us away in a whirlwind of wonder and takes us on an adventure that will live on in our hearts forever.
We're walking in the air.
The animation itself becomes the source of awe and wonder, drawing us into this spellbinding voyage, casting magic before our eyes, as James and the snowman soar across vast country landscapes. We see breathtaking shifts in perspective. We're swept past unforgettable sights. And just as the snowman is taking James on the adventure of his lifetime, we are lucky enough to be taken on one of the adventures of our lifetimes.
I'm finding I can fly so high above with you.
But of course, we cannot talk about the snowman without commenting on the music. Of all the aspects that contribute to this film's unquenchable melancholy, the music is perhaps the thing that defines it more than any other. Composer Howard Blake had a tall order ahead of him, as the book is, as we've said, wordless. And the courageous and correct decision was taken to make the film wordless as well, meaning the music was going to be playing a huge, pivotal role in the emotional narrative. Fortunately for the film, and for us, he was more than equal to the task. Howard composed and arranged a nuanced and precise score that expresses all the emotional beats of the narrative with exquisite precision. From the wonder of the snowman coming to life and seeing the house, to a jolly dance in the forest, he also created magic. But again, there is one part of this musical journey that stays with us more than any other. Walking in the Air, simply put, is a generational composition. Sung and performed by Peter Arty in St. Paul's Cathedral, this piece is the ultimate expression of the bittersweet melancholy that defines this film. And incidentally, Peter seldom gets remembered for this performance, as it was uncredited in the film, and Aled Jones performed the 1985 chart-topping version that was later released. And it is he who has been associated with the piece ever since, despite not actually performing the version we hear in the film. But all the same, it is an extraordinary piece of music. Extraordinary. From the slightly haunting and, yes, melancholic harmony to the powerful arrangement, we're taken on an adventure through the skies, joining other snowmen for a party in the forest, and even to meet Father Christmas himself. It all comes together in a symphony of emotion. The animation, the music, the story, the emotional feeling of experiencing this voyage with James and the Snowman is just something that's going to be with us forever. And before we know it, it's all over. They arrive back at James's home, thrilled but tired. The snowman resumes his spot outside, with James going to bed, happy and content. He wakes up the next morning, beyond excited to spend another day with his frozen friend, only to discover there are simply no words that could ever do justice to this moment. How it felt to experience. How it feels to experience. Briggs said it was symbolic of the impermanence of life. How we simply cannot know what will happen tomorrow, regardless of how wonderful today has been. But once you know Briggs' story, know his grief, this aspect becomes impossible to ignore. He created a story about adventure, about joy, about wonder. If only for a single night, the snowman came into James's life and illuminated it brighter than it ever had been before. And even though this cost both him and us a pain that is honestly impossible to describe, he will get to live the rest of his life having had that adventure, having had that wonder, as will we. And ultimately, that's what The Snowman is. A story about life. One of life's simplest truths, in fact. That grief is the price we pay for love. All of our relationships eventually will end. It will be painful, and we, or our loved ones, in the best case scenario, will grieve. But like the magic of James walking in the air or dancing in the forest, it is today that makes that grief a price worth paying. So this Christmas, if we're lucky enough to be spending it with those that we love, remember this story that broke the hearts of all that experienced it, and that we've only grieved because we've loved. This film, bro. This was a really difficult video to make because I kept crying as I was making it, as I was writing the script, as I was editing it. It's ridiculous. I'm quite an emotional guy anyway, but this was silly. But that's just the power of this movie. And for as long as I'm here, the Snowman is going to be part of me. But what do you feel about the Snowman? Have you watched it before? Has it damaged you as much as it has me, or moved you, I should say? I can't see Christmas without it. I wonder if you feel the same. So let's meet down in the comments. I love reading the comments, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys are having a fantastic Christmas season so far in the run up to the big day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.